If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 321 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by Graham McDonald to talk about a big week, as always, in the world of mixed martial arts. We're literally moments out here from the main event of Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw. And we get into that whole card, next week's card, and a bit more as well here. But today we must tell you that there's big news, because support for this podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who, as you know, are the best men's below-the-waist champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels, and they've just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, all across Europe. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. With this exclusive offer, you can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. Myself and Graham have just got ours in the door. I think yesterday I got mine. They're absolutely fantastic. Imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I'm blown away by the performance, craftsmanships and details of the 4.0 are absolutely next level. Brought up, we had the 3.0 for the last while and it's really moved on. This is the next level. So Manscaped's engineered even the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and incredibly comfortable grooming experience. The 4th generation trimmer features the cutting edge ceramic blade, which we all know by now to reduce the accidents, and it has the skin safe technology, which we all know about, so you're confident in shaving those boys. This upgraded trimmer includes a multifunction on-off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for more precise shave. The 4.0 allows you to customize your trim to additional guard lengths, which is absolutely fantastic. 1 to 4. Did I mention wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. Men, if you have been shaving with the same nut trimmer on your face, you've been doing it wrong. No person wants to end up with pubes in their mouth, and that's a fact. It's time to get your own ball, hair and body trimmer with Manscaped to make the me time the best time and enhance your confidence with some nice smooth balls. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. That's 20% off, free shipping with the code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools with Manscaped. Alright, Graham, we're here at 3 o'clock in the morning, just after TJ Dillashaw versus Corey Sandhagen. And it was a pretty mad night. Like the last few weeks, we haven't really been getting straight into the fights afterwards, or unless it's obviously the McGregor one, but going through the fights. But I feel like last night, or last evening, as most people listen to it are here now, or tonight, will kind of want us to go through some of these fights because they were so insane, especially the main event. We'll get to that in a second. One thing I really wanted to talk about in this card, throughout this card, in lots of different fights, was the ability for durability to really reign in MMA. I was looking at the fight between, I'm just looking at here, Randy Costa and Adrian Yanez. And Randy Costa came out in that. And I remember, all I can remember was Dan Hardy, and I was talking to him on the interview I did before the McGregor fight, talking about, the stance switches and southpaw versus orthodox and southpaw versus southpaw. And he was kind of saying, in future, that won't exist, that everyone will be like two-sided. Everyone will be a switch fighter. And Randy Costa might be one of the most natural fighters we've ever seen doing that. But Adrian Yanez just stood up to him. His durability, his ability to take a shot and keep coming was just better than Costa's, and it won him the fight. Darren Elkins, I would say the same for him. Dillashaw even at times, I would say the same for him. Paiva, I would say the same for him. like 4 of the main card fights, I would say, were almost won on durability at times, or certain, if not won on durability, not lost because of durability. And I really think like our sport has gotten so much better in terms of technique, in terms of what it takes to win a fight. Whether it be being unbelievably well-rounded or being like really elite in lots of different areas, but that ability to take shots, take a licking and keep on ticking is something that will always stand the test of time. It was the anniversary of UFC Dublin this week, and you could always remember Carl Pindred, and Conor McGregor afterwards saying, you can't beat that guy. Well, there are certain fighters you just cannot beat that guy, and I think tonight was one of those nights. Before we get into all those fights, Graham, what do you think about that? Like, I know you've, down through the years, obviously watched as many fights, or if not more than me, and seen people in training and stuff. That ability to just not be broken, that turns into the ability to break other people, is just an astonishing thing to have as a fighter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a drive, or it's like a delusion nearly. It's like, oh well, this guy will tire himself out if he keeps this level up. And you kind of saw that in the Kyler Phillips fight. He kind of thought he had the finish in the first round, was really going for it. The bell kind of, it looked like it was going to be a finish. The bell kind of saved Papaya. How do you say that? How do you say his name?
Paiva, I think.
Paiva. Mm-hmm. I think there was a few different pronunciations going on, but the bell kind of saved them at the end of the round. And I think Phillips maybe exerted a bit too much energy there, and you see that, like, maybe a lot of other fighters would have not moved, or like for example, you mentioned Carl Pendred there. He mentioned to me before. I've said this on the podcast before, but he, right after that Carvalho fight, he was in a real bad triangle armbar. And I was just talking to him. I was like, "Oh, were you close to tapping there? What were you thinking?" And he was like, "Oh, I was just thinking, if my arm snaps here, I'll tell the ref, oh, I'm double jointed. Jesus. You know what I mean? That's the kind of attitude you kind of have to. These really, like, Darren Elkins, Carl Pendred guys have to have. These kind of. There isn't even the possibility that you're going to give up. It's not even in the conversation with yourself in your mind.
Yeah, like the most dangerous thing I think in MMA going forward is not like, let's say you think the most dangerous thing going forward could be like, imagine if Conor McGregor and Khabib were put together, and you made that one excellent fighter. I think the biggest issue going forward in MMA for like the top level is like a Darren Elkins with the ability of a McGregor and a Khabib put together. Like that is. It's funny because like sometimes we look at MMA and we always talk about the progression of MMA. Like they talked about it after the main event tonight, just briefly, how good technically that fight was. And I actually think it was maybe a little bit overrated in terms of technique, not in terms of a fun fight. It was fantastic, but we will obviously get to it. But
yeah, I was going to say that Daniel Cormier was saying you won't see a better fight ever. I was just like, I don't know about that, mate.
Seen a lot
it was
better,
very, very good fight,
yeah.
But like,
yeah, but I
really good fight, really. It was. That, but it was a bit overboard.
I actually think it's a funny thing when we get to a stage where technique, and we're actually getting very close to it in terms of the techniques we have at the moment kind of being universal. And that's what I always talk about BJJ and how it's becoming less effective because everyone knows it very well. The same thing will happen, not necessarily becoming less effective, but everyone will be able to strike very well off of, either side. Everyone will be able to kick the calf very well. Everyone will be able to do everything very well. And it'll come down
and Sean will be saying striking doesn't work.
Yeah.
That'll be your new stick.
I will. But like, I feel like when that happens, fighters like this who have that ability in terms of technique and tactics, the fighters who have like the basic madness or the basic fucking war within them are going to shine a lot. Like, and maybe tonight wasn't a great example of all of it. Maybe in the main event it kind of was a little bit, but I think that's a very interesting thing to look at going forward. We do this an awful lot, I suppose, on the podcast to kind of point at things to look at going forward. I really think that is a thing that we should.
Well, it can really overcome. You can overcome a lot if you look at like Elkins. Obviously, throughout his career, like one that stands out to me is recently retired your boy, Darren, or what's his name? Sorry,
Mirsad
Bektic.
Bektic,
Bektic. You know, obviously he's much more well-rounded and skilled in nearly all departments, if not all departments, of actual martial arts than Elkins. But Elkins, you know, just took it in that fight, kind of similar to what he did in tonight's fight. He just took it, and then he you know, took over once the kind of popping the punches or the mental kind of...
He broke him. He broke him by refusing to being broke.
Tide, the mental tide had turned just through sheer force of will. Like that's like, you know, Kyle Penn will tell you himself, like, he wasn't like the most talented MMA fighter, but he went in there and, you know, beat some very talented MMA fighters with ability and with, though, mixed in with that. And I think primarily like what he'll be remembered for is, you know, his never say die attitude, and that's something that, like, you know, you either have it or you don't. I think it's maybe you can improve it or something, but I think to be one of these, like, really, you know, top level guys, like we're talking like these MMA guys, we kind of forget because we're desensitized to it, how tough all of these MMA guys Absolutely. Are, like even down to an amateur. You know, the amount of like balls it takes to, for the lack of a better word, to fight in this game, and then to dedicate your life to this is amazing, really. And we never really talk about that because we've been watching for so many years. But you know, a lot of people, like most of the population, wouldn't put themselves at risk in these situations.
Us included, yeah. And I also think, like, it's not just about that desire to win it, because if you have that, it's, as you said, you can't teach it. But I think as well, I think McGregor has a touch of this. I think Sugar Sean has a touch of this. Even Randy Costa. Sometimes when you have the ability to come out and be like excellent early, and not necessarily just early, but sometimes your body won't allow you to get through those moments, you know, whether that's from a cardiovascular point of view, or whether that's, you know, your leg getting injured, or whether that's just someone being on the opposite side who has a better ability than you in that area, even though you might have a better technical ability than them. That's a huge thing. Like, some of the best fighters in the world have that, and they can hide it for a long time. Like, a lot of MMA as well still today is hiding like your inadequacies. Like, look at Khabib, one of the greatest fighters of all time. He's not the greatest striker of all time. He's an okay striker, a good striker. He showed a jab, you know, he nearly knocked Conor McGregor out. But if you're able to get Khabib in just the boxing match, a lot of people would probably fancy beating him. I'm sure McGregor, I'm sure Poirier, I'm sure a lot of people, Michael Johnson, would fancy beating him, you know. But he was able to hide that ability, and that's good technique and that's good tactics. And the same goes for McGregor, and the same goes for lots of these fighters. And obviously, as I mentioned, going forward, maybe that's something that you can't, that you know, won't be possible. But I feel like tonight there was just so many examples of it on this card, where these guys just kind of shining through and coming through it and refusing to lose while being tough as fuck and just standing up to everything was just absolutely fantastic. And let's start, I suppose, at the Yanez fight, and we'll run through the undercard there, didn't very quickly. That one, to me, like, Costa looks so good. I know I mentioned it already, that I thought he was going to run through Yanez, to be honest. The way he started that fight, I thought he looked very good. Even towards
the jab was working brilliant. It looked like it was, you know, as you said, he was switching stances. He looked like he was really comfortable, flowy, and, you know, Yanez was taking a lot of damage, but yeah, he just kind of stayed in there. He never shied away from it. He you know, he turned it around pretty quick. Maybe he showed his experience a bit. You know, Randy Costa's obviously, this is only his 8th fight, so, you know, he definitely has a lot of potential still, but it's a very good win for Yanez.
Yeah, I even thought at the end of the first, when Yanez kind of turned it around a little bit, I thought Costa might have enough coming into the second. But, like, Yanez as well, I think a lot of people will talk about that fight, and will talk about Yanez's technical ability, how it beat Costa in the end, and it absolutely did. But I think the most important part was that durability, and was his ability to just keep going a little bit longer, and also to keep taking a little bit more damage than Costa took. Like, if you put all that damage together in the fight up until maybe the very, very end, you know, you could have a very good argument that Yanez took more damage, and in fact I think he probably took a lot more. but still he was standing and Costa wasn't, even before the kind of finishing blow came. And that is a big thing in MMA. If you have that ability, you're brilliant. And the ending, I think Luke Thomas tweeted, but watching it back, it was absolutely beautiful. The way Yanez kind of went high and he kind of touched, then went to the body. And then as Costa kind of went down to block the body, Yanez came right over the top again, and I think he hit him with an uppercut, was it, or a jab? But it hurt him anyway with that shot through the middle, and then went back to the body again. It was just beautiful technical work that was allowed to be shown by his durability and his balls and his toughness and his heart. It was really, really good. And Yanez in that bantamweight division, and even Costa, I still think Costa's a very good fighter. I wouldn't say many bad things about him. Comes out very, very quick, and maybe that's something he needs to work on going forward. But a lot of people won't be able to take that round one madness from him. But Yanez, with that ability, with the technical ability, and with that heart and everything as well that you can add to it, he could be a force to be reckoned with as he climbs. The only thing I would say, that if you do start like that, and if you do take a licking like that against a lot of bantamweights, it's going to be very tough to survive against someone like a Sandhagen or even whoever it might be as you climb up the division. So I think he's not there yet, but getting there, like Aaron Rod-Aaron. But yeah. On the undercard, then, because my internet has been shit all day, I missed the opening fight, Diana Bellator, but she got a unanimous decision over Hannah Goldie. I caught the Sajara Eubanks fight. Bit of a mismatch, this one. She did look good, though. Did you?
She immediately got a takedown and smashed her pretty much from the first second until 1 minute to go in the round when it was finished.
Yeah.
So yeah, we didn't really get to see much of Reed, but maybe it looked like a squash match, but maybe she can show herself to be a better fighter than she was. She didn't get much chance to get off when you're on your back after 10 seconds and Eubanks is on top of you. It is a difficult situation, but it's only her fifth fight as a pro, so it's hard to judge her.
Yeah, I thought Eubanks did well, because usually she gets on top and she spends a lot of time there and doesn't maybe land as much. I thought she did that at the start, maybe gave it a minute to establish the position, didn't work herself kind of into a better position, and then started landing the shots up in the output and got the finish from there. So I thought it was a beautiful performance. One as well, we talked about her cardio maybe in the past, and if she fights like that, where she maybe takes a minute to establish the position and maybe gets a little bit of win back, say if that was in the second or third round, and then starts to launch in like that, well, 90 seconds of damage from a tough top position is well enough to win most rounds. So good stuff from Eubanks, and one that
I wonder if it's a game plan to be more urgent, or if it was the fact that Reed was kind of offering no resistance on the ground, so she just kind of I can posture up here, I can go to work.
I was thinking the same. It's hard to know. I would like to think it's herself, but I would probably bet on it being the level of opposition. Julio Arcedin got a lovely finish over Andre Ewell. I thought he was landing the more impactful shots in round one. Ewell, it was one of those fights where every time Ewell tried to throw a punch, Arce was countering him and just hurting him, and it kind of stopped Ewell from doing anything. And reminded me a little bit of the Makachev fight from last week, where every move he made was just kind of the perfect move, and his opponent kind of gave up on what he was trying to do. Now, Ewell didn't do that. He kept coming, and it actually kind of ended up badly for him in the end. I thought it was a good stoppage from Tognoni. I know a few people were giving out about it, but I think Ewell, was only taking more shots. There was only more unnecessary damage coming, and I didn't think he was defending himself correctly. So I thought it was a good stoppage and a good performance, and a good performance as well by Mickey Gall. Got the rear naked choke very easily and very quickly over Jordan Williams, who he dropped at one stage as well with a bit of an elbow. What do you think of the performance? What about it? I know we talked about it a little bit last week. Mickey Gall versus Ian Gary. I like that fight.
Yeah, I thought Gall's offensive striking looked much better than we've seen previously. His defensive striking still looked a bit suspect, but he's still early in his career, I suppose. He's kind of been around a long time, but for a strange reason, the CM Punk reason is obviously not a usual thing. So obviously he came in as an underdog here. He dropped his opponent straight away. I think he was maybe could have got a TKO if he had not straight away gone to grapple, but he nearly got a couple of submissions, or nearly got a guillotine submission, I think it was, before he got the rear naked choke. So you can't really argue with that when he puts the guy away inside 3 minutes with a finish.
Yeah, 100%. Imavov didn't look good as well. Basically went halfway through the fight, beating Ian Heinisch. I think Ian Heinisch, when he kind of came into the UFC, we thought he might be a little bit better than he's turned out to be. But I think Imavov is a very, very good fighter, and he brought a lot of pressure in terms of his striking and landed lots of big shots. And he's a guy you cannot mess with in that middleweight division. I think he's a guy who will rise through the ranks pretty quickly in a weak middleweight division. As well, Brendan Allen against Punahele Sahariano. It was funny, I was actually watching for next week's card a bit of Brendan Allen. He fights a lot of fights like he does in this one, comes forward and tries to land big shots. And it's not always successful for him, and he's not always actually able to do it because of his opponent's ability. But in this one, look, I thought it was a close fight. I thought he won the second and third. I gave Soriano the first. Daniel Cormier acted like it was the greatest disgusting score of all time to score the first round for against Brendan Allen, even though almost everyone scored it the opposite way. Oh my god, I can't get into another Daniel Cormier rant.
I think two judges agreed with him.
Yeah, they did, but it was one of those ones. It was one. Okay, maybe what I said there was a bit too much. But
as a judging
aficionado, the legend. It was
union rep.
It was a close round. If Daniel Cormier wants to score that 10-9 to Allen, I can absolutely see how he scores a 10-9 to Allen. I scored it the other way. But to say it's 100% could not be anything but that, or you're an idiot, is just like insanely wrong. He literally called someone basically an idiot online or on the broadcast for saying it. Like, he just hasn't a clue. He's awful in every single way, Cormier. There's just nothing good about him. He's not funny. He's not smart. He never says anything intelligent. His technical breakdowns of the fights are just how he would fight the fight, and it's grand if fucking some American wrestler is fighting, but we've TJ Dillashaw and Corey Sandhagen in the main event, not really anyone on the card like him, and he's commentating as if they're like heavy American wrestler who has lost every big fight they've been in. Like, it's, oh my god, it's just so
we'll talk about this later. We've calmed down.
I actually, like, I just want to know when it's going to end. I don't know how much more of Daniel Cormier I can take on the broadcast. What can we do?
They're so happy with him, they gave him a big bonus now.
Oh god, can we pick it outside the UFC offices or something? Get rid of Daniel Cormier. Yeah, like, it takes a lot to annoy me in that sort of thing, because I'm used to listening to bad commentary for years, but he is so exceptionally terrible in every single way. It's actually insane. And
Dominic Cruz is getting worse as well. It might be time to go back to the old very low volume in the Mike Goldberg days. It might be time to go back to that.
I think it might be, actually. Yeah, it might be. Having said that as well, and this is a tough argument to jump straight to after saying that, but from maybe a more educated point of view, or maybe a more head on your shoulders point of view, I didn't think it was a great night for judging, to be honest. The Miranda Maverick Macy Barber fight, it came down to the second round. Look, Barber won the third. I think all three judges said that they did, and Maverick the first. All three judges said that. It came down to the second. I went back and I watched it. I think Maverick should have won the fight, to be honest. I do not think this is a good decision.
Would you say robbery? Come on, this is what the people want to know. Robbery or no robbery?
From what we have in MMA today, I'm going to say it now. Hold on, let me explain it. From the level of judging we have in MMA today, if you were to say about bad decisions, this is one of the worst decisions we've had in years, I would say, because we don't really have that many bad decisions. So I will go on. I'll throw robbery at it.
This is the worst decision since Leslie Smith, Sinead Kavanagh.
Oh, there was one there recently. There was a terrible one recently. Remember that one in, was it PFL or Gleason Thibault one? That was bad, but I think this one was worse. There was another one, I don't know, yeah. But this was not great. Like, I went back and watched it, and it came down to Macy Barber landed one nice elbow against the cage, and then a second one that wasn't bad, but Maverick got on top towards the end and landed like 6 or 7 shots after she had been relatively even on the feet, if you include Macy Barber's elbows and stuff. So it's one of those ones, you know, if my good friend Ben always says, it's not about agreeing, it's about understanding. And I definitely don't agree with anyone who gave this to Barber, and I find it very hard to understand anyone who gave it to Barber either. So yeah, I do not think that was a good decision at all. And then the Paiva Phillips one, I think that was bad as well. That was a 10-8. That first round has to be a 10-8.
Draw all day,
yeah, it has to be a draw, that one. One judge got it right. So yeah, I think
he nearly finished him a few times at the end of that round and was saved by the bell. Come on, like, and I don't know what you have to do to get a 10-8 if that's not a 10-8.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 10-8s are changing, so that's the thing. I don't know, is it going to be the start of next year or whatever, but I think it's an issue in Las Vegas. We've seen Texas down through the years, and we've had issues there because they don't bring in the correct judges and everything like that. But I think we're having issues in Las Vegas now because they're doing too much chopping and changing. I saw a few different people actually tweeting about that tonight, and I think the judges, when they get together, as who was it, Scott Fontana, I think, said it, and I've said it before on this podcast as well, that when the judges get together and they kind of go through the criteria, and I've spoken to Ben about it on the podcast, so you can go back and listen to those. If you're on severemma.com, just scroll down and you'll see the podcast here in the on the page where this podcast is, and we've spoken about how judges have their reckoning of the criteria, how they understand the criteria, and I think it's very, very intelligent, and we've spoken through it before. But I feel like the commissions at the moment are trying to adjust that understanding a little bit, and are trying to do it because of the idiocy we hear from the likes of Daniel Cormier and people in public who don't really understand the criteria and who don't go through it like these judges do. I think leaving these judges to kind of their own devices to judge the fights correctly has worked very well for the last few years, I think. But trying to change that, people don't realise, people want change when we don't need change. We've got to change a few years ago, and judging has improved significantly. If we adjust it from here, in certain ways, it's going to get worse. Now, there's certain things maybe they could get better, don't get me wrong, but if we're taking away the ability to score 10-8s as with the 3Ds like we have been doing for the last few years, if we're less inclined to score them, that's a big issue, because we get fights like this where it should have been a 10-8 in the first round and it's not given. And was that because of the directive the Nevada State Athletic Commission are giving out? I don't know. I see a few people saying it online, and maybe, I haven't spoken to anyone who's judging over there, so maybe not. But it's one of those ones where it's difficult. It's a difficult one going forward, and I don't think it's for the good. And everyone's complaining tonight about it, but they also complained about when we got the correct scores over the last few years, and we had the right 10-8s, and they gave out about those 10-8s as well. So if this doesn't say you can never please anyone, or you'll definitely never please everyone, what more can you say? So, yeah. Anyway, there's my rant on that one. What about Darren Elkins, Graham? What about him? This fight against Derek Minner. I didn't think he was coming back, to be honest. I tweeted he has him exactly where he wants, but
I went on to the betting, try and get the betting odds once the second round started, and it was suspended. I was like, I'd love to put a
of course
cheeky tenner here on Elkins.
10-1 on Darren Elkins wins.
I was refreshing, but it wouldn't come back. But, Elkins, obviously, we talked about him earlier, that heart, that determination, that, durability, the toughness, all of that stuff. He was in a lot of bad positions. He was getting run over in the first round. That was got to be, 10-8. If the co-main event wasn't 10-8, maybe this wasn't, but, I think it should have been 10-8 either way. And, Elkins, if it wasn't Elkins, you'd be thinking, no, this is a matter of time. But fair play to Elkins. He did what he always does. He hung in there. He outgutted, he outhearted his opponent, and you would think that, like, how long he's been around and how many times he's done this, that you can't do this forever. You can't do this for even anywhere near this long. But he's still doing it. Here he is, 2021, still doing it, 35 fights deep. So, fair play to Darren Elkins. He's, he'll be remembered for a lot of things. He'll be remembered for that tattoo he got a few years ago. He'll be remembered for, he'll be remembered for his ridiculous comebacks. And, this would be, once in a career comeback for most fighters. But this is, if you looked at Twitter timeline right before the second round started, a lot of people were, half joking but half serious that, this is, as you said, this is exactly what exactly where he wants him.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you have to give it to him as well that look, I suppose if people haven't seen the fight and they're just listening tomorrow, basically what happened was Derek Minner took him down and he just beat the living shit out of him, basically. It felt like Elkins was getting overwhelmed so bad on the ground in terms of the grappling, in terms of just being taken down, that it felt like he was kind of giving up those positions and trying to bring Minor down into his guard just to tire him out a little bit, because that's a ridiculous thing to say, but that's what it looked like. It wasn't that, 100% wasn't that. It was Minor winning that fight and doing very well in that position, but he was overwhelming Elkins so much it almost looked like Elkins was playing along with it, and it was as bad of a beatdown as you can almost get without a 10-7. I thought it was a 10-8. I agree with you, Graham, 100%. And he had the duration, he had the dominance, and he got the damage late in that round especially, and it could have been finished, as you said. But Elkins, it was one of those ones where Minner came out in the second round, and he kind of did the same thing. He took Elkins down almost immediately, if I'm not mistaken, was landing shots on top. But there was a point where he was kind of, it wasn't quite in half guard, or it wasn't in mount, one of those kind of side positions where he was landing a few shots. And some people would go to their knees, they would try to cover up, and they'd take maybe 5 or 6 shots to the side or the back of the head on either side, and then they'd end up getting finished. But Elkins kind of just rolled and kind of half caught a leg or half got on top, and the second he did it, you could see the life just edging out of Derek Minner. You could just see it. He was just like, no, I'm getting Darren Elkins here. And he was like, no.
I've seen this movie before. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, oh my God. And you have to feel sorry for him, because it's just, you put everything into it. You throw all your best shots, and this guy isn't going away. And even if you have the ability to get Darren Elkins off you and get another takedown again, you just know Darren Elkins is still not going anywhere, and we're halfway through the fight. You have to do all of this again and still not end up on top or on the bottom against Darren Elkins, and still not end up with him throwing big shots and big elbows on you. That must be an unbelievably tough task to face, and unfortunately for Minner, he wasn't able to do it. But Elkins rolls on, and this man, I hope MMA never loses this. I talked earlier about these next level of fighters that are going to be just unbelievably good, and we're seeing them coming, we're seeing them already. But I hope we still have these mad bastards in MMA. I really hope we never lose that. Just these hard fuckers who refuse to give up. Maybe not the best fighters in the world, but are just the toughest son of a bitch motherfuckers that you'll ever see. I love him. I love Darren Elkins. He'll forever be on Team Sheehan. What a legend. Oh my God. Did you see my tweet was on TV? I love Darren Elkins so much, and I don't mind it. I'm happy enough with that. What a performance from Darren Elkins. Absolutely brilliant. And you could say the same about Paiva. He was almost knocked out about 5 or 6 times in that fight and kept coming and won the majority decision in the end. Great performance with him, but as we both agree, I think that one should have been a draw. But yeah, we discussed that fight anyway. Let's get to the main event. So, TJ Dillashaw, Corey Sandhagen. How'd you score it, Graham? First of all, I suppose.
Actually had a 48-47 for Sandhagen, but there's some very close rounds in there, and I don't think you can be arguing too much either way. Yeah, 48-47 either way.
Yeah, I scored a 48-47 Sandhagen as well. Look, a very, very close fight. They came out, and Sandhagen almost had that triangle in the first round after landing a few nice shots. But
it looks like he just let go of it or something.
He did. Do you know what I know exactly what happened. I'll tell you.
He went for a leg lock.
It was a Brazilian tap by TJ. TJ tapped his arse, then cut his shorts to make it look like he wasn't Brazilian tapping.
I missed that.
And he let it go. Yeah, I saw it straight away, and then I saw him grabbing the shorts. And I'm not 100% sure but do you know sometimes when this guy's Brazilian tap, then the submission is never let go straight away. It's always like a couple of seconds later after the person who has the submission kind of half realizes, okay, they didn't tap, but they're not tapping, if you know what I mean. They're not giving up.
Maybe, but didn't the ref shout like let go of the shorts, like
Yeah,
right as it happened as
he
well.
did,
So
yeah.
like obviously Sandhagen would have heard that and maybe not let go, but maybe it's a reflex or like a muscle memory to
Exactly.
in the gym let go of those submissions. But yeah, if I didn't actually hear his post-fight interview. He didn't complain about that or anything, no.
No, he didn't know, but I don't like. He mightn't have even seen it.
You think that would be mentioned? Maybe it'll be mentioned the post-fight press conference. Maybe
It was as clear as day to me. Now maybe I missaw. I was only looking at it live, but to me, even if it wasn't, even if it was just the grabbing of the shorts, that could be something that would just put you off, that would just take you out of it enough to move. Or maybe he just did move, but that was in tight, and that was a good, bit of effective grappling from Sandhagen there in a round that I think a lot of people scored.
He landed
for
a nice shot right before he kind of maneuvered into that position as well. And after that, then I think that was when TJ kind of popped his knee or twisted his knee in some way. And I think that was maybe, that round was very close, but I gave it to TJ. The second round, I think TJ maybe had in his head about the knee and wasn't really sure and was kind of testing out the limits of what he could do and what he couldn't do with it. And maybe that's kind of played into Sandhagen winning that round.
Yeah, I agree. At the end of the first round, I thought TJ did enough. Like, TJ was grabbing the fence as well for a guy who was out for 2 years off a drugs ban. He certainly didn't give up.
We've talked about this before, though. We've talked about this before, though. You might as well do that. Like, when do we ever see if you grab the cage or you put your toes in the cage or your fingers in the cage or you grab the shorts? Like, there's a few incidents over the years, but like, in how many thousand fights is that? Like, one comes to mind. Norman Park got a point taken in what ended up being a drawn fight, I think, because of that.
Was it, or
was it Santos, maybe?
Or, out in Brazil, was it? Yeah.
Thiago Santos, maybe, I think it was. But grabbing the fence, like, I think the ref said to Dillashaw, if you keep doing that, you're going to lose the position. Not even I'm going to take a point. He's already been grabbing the shorts, grabbing the cage. So you might as well do it. Like, just keep doing it. Like, why wouldn't you? I think he even had another foul in the 5th round as well and was warned about it as well. But, you're just going to get away with it. So you might as well do it. Like, it's like in any sport, like, in soccer, if you're going to get away with pulling the jersey or grabbing the guy in a corner, you're going to do it.
Yeah. 100%. I would agree. Like, and that's why I've talked about it in depth before. I think there should be a rule change where it's not a point taken necessarily unless it's flagrant, unless it keeps happening. I think we need to find a way to give something to someone, the victim of that immediately, whether it's a fence grabber or what else. And I've talked about this before, so I won't go into it again. But in this one, like, there was definitely things in the first round, but. Look, as I said, they weren't. Nothing was done by Herb Dean, who's a terrible referee. But it did move on. Look, I thought TJ won that as well. But it was a close round. But I definitely think TJ did enough in the second. As you said, I didn't think he could move enough, and Corey just landed that straight left enough times. Everyone was complaining about the spin and shit he was throwing, and I think rightly so. He was kind of just giving up. The periods of the fight he was winning. It felt like Sandhagen was stop fighting for like 2 minutes of the fight, and then fight for like 2.5 minutes or 2 minutes of the fight as well, and in the end it'd be closer, one section it'd be closer. It was weird when you do that.
I think that was the thing of, like, trying to go 5 rounds. I think they mentioned he hadn't even been 3 rounds in the last 3 years, so he did look a little bit tired more quickly than TJ did. Like, obviously 5 rounds at a high pace is very tiring, but maybe because in his mind he isn't experienced at going these rounds, that he needed to kind of take breathers. But you can't do that against somebody like TJ Dillashaw. He's gonna make these rounds very difficult, and obviously whichever way you scored it, like I scored it for Sandhagen, whichever way you scored it, though, it was too close for comfort in terms of
I think
both fighters.
I think you're right. I thought he was tired at one stage as well, but it came into like the 4th round and he was moving fine. I don't know, was it a second win, but he looked good. And I think maybe he was too worried about his cardio. I think maybe if he had that fight again, he wouldn't be as worried about it. I think maybe, we talked about it before, even say with Ian Gary going 5 rounds in Cage Warriors. He's kind of proven to himself he can do it. So if he fights that fight again, maybe he'd be better to fight over 5 rounds, and maybe you'd even end it quicker, and it's been the same with other fighters down through the years. It's been a thing we've obviously talked about a lot since the kind of the 5-round main events, and now even more have come into the sport. But I definitely saw that. Like, and the fight, because of the way TJ was moving in that second, I think he could have had the ability to up the pace a little bit and finish that fight, but he didn't. Now, I'm not saying he should go out and easily finish TJ, but in the third, I think it was halfway through the third, maybe, that TJ started moving better. He said between rounds that his leg was okay, and I think he kind of convinced himself it was, and then started moving fine afterwards. And it's probably the adrenaline now that got him through. The leg could be still fecked up or the knee, but he definitely started moving better. But then he got that really bad cut. I thought it was very, very close on the feet. I saw a lot of people giving this round to Sandhagen. But like, I just gave it to TJ. Then I gave the fourth to Sandhagen. So I gave the first to TJ, the second to Sandhagen, the third to TJ, and then the fourth to Sandhagen. And
the fourth was very close as well. I think, like, you know, that spinning back fist at the end really kind of sealed it. Like, that might have even just stole it from him.
Yeah, and what the fuck was that? What was that noise? You just muted at the wrong time. Was that a dog roar or what was it?
Sorry, we got 2 dogs in the bed here.
That's what you get at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's staying in the podcast. It's fine. I thought in the fourth and the fifth, I gave the fourth and the fifth to Corey Sandhagen, and the reason I did was I just thought there was too much clinching out of TJ Dillashaw. You know, we look at the revised criteria and we see what you score with, and even though the issue with this round was TJ Dillashaw landed some shots from the clinch and probably won like 3.5 minutes of both of these rounds, like in a very small way with a few small strikes. And I think
nothing impactful, really.
Nothing impactful, but I think Corey Sandhagen maybe won like 90 seconds, or maybe even maybe a little bit more one round, maybe less in another round of it. But because he won less of the round, even though he did it with more impactful stuff, I think it looked closer and may have been scored closer because of that. Now, I think that goes for a lot of rounds, but it was the thing about it as well, later in the fight, I don't think Sandhagen's impactful shots were as impactful as they were early on the fight. That kind of slide away straight left that he kept on landing was a really good shot, but it didn't seem to be doing as much damage on TJ as it as
I think the leg kicks have to be credited there from TJ as well. He did up the leg kicks as the rounds went on, and you know, they always take a toll as well in terms of being tired, and the pop in your shots is already gone. You've eaten a bunch of leg kicks. TJ mentioned himself in the post-fight interview as well that he had that back position a lot, but because of the knee, he felt he couldn't put in his hooks. I think he said he felt some kind of, you know, pop or twist when he tried to put in his hooks. So, you know, that position probably that he was getting into in terms of the grappling would have been a much more advantageous position if he could have, you know, got the hooks in or got a body triangle in there and land some ground and pound there. So, you know, he still went back to it, even though he wasn't even trying to put the hooks in. You know, if he had have ended up losing the fight, like I thought he did, it would have, you know, it would have been probably where he threw the fight away. But, you know, he just about edged it in the judges' eyes. So, you know, fair play to him. But it could have been a very costly kind of stall position that cost him the fight if our scorecards were the ones being
I have the scorecards here, right? So all 3 judges agreed with us in the first 3 rounds. Everyone scored the first for TJ, the second for Sandhagen, and the third for TJ. So that's the way I had it. 2 judges, or 1 judge scored the 4th for TJ, and 1 judge scored the 5th for TJ. So that Derek Cleary scored both the 4th and the 5th, and he was the only judge who scored both the 4th and the 5th for TJ Dillashaw. So it came down to that, you know, it came down to the 4th and the 5th. 1 judge gave TJ the 4th.
If that judge is looking at those leg kicks and he's giving them, like, you know, more, thinking they're more impactful than maybe at the time myself and yourself were giving them credit for, then, you know, that's completely justifiable. Yeah, and it's one of those weird cards as well, right, where TJ Dillashaw, if you go to the 4th and 5th round, right, TJ Dillashaw lost the 4th round 2 cards to 1. He lost the 5th round 2 cards to 1, but still won it.
which is a bit weird. It feels like it doesn't make any sense. But he did win 2 of the first 3 rounds, so that's how it makes sense, I suppose. But yeah, it was. You'd think it came down to the last 2 rounds, but I know maybe I'm 4 o'clock in the morning speak there. But anyway, that's how it was scored. Overall though, I thought TJ Dillashaw. When we talked about Miesha Tate last week and how she kind of looked different physically, but seemed to have like more cardio in her. I thought that's how TJ Dillashaw looked. I didn't think he looked as ripped or as muscular as he once did. I thought he looked. And as the fight went on, I wasn't saying that he was completely out of shape or anything, but I didn't think he looked like in his normal shape that he is in. Maybe that's impossible to get when you're 2 years out, or maybe he has adjusted it to be a more cardio-driven fighter than he once was, and I think, look, it worked for him the way he kept going on the fight after 2 years out. But what did you think of the performances? I suppose we talked about Sandhagen and his kind of only fighting for half a minute or a minute and a half in each round. What did you think of TJ's performance after being 2 years out of the cage? And I know for drugs, for EPO, we must mention it, obviously.
Yeah, I think, obviously 2.5 years out of the cage is very difficult. The game moves so fast, and Corey Sandhagen's had a lot of fights in the time. But I think, as we talked about, the 5-round experience that TJ has, the caliber of opponent he has, for years he has fought. So if this was an older guy, maybe it would be harder. I think his timing maybe wasn't what it was at his prime, but that's to be expected after this much time out. So, with all the things going on around him, kind of, coming back, a lot of people not happy. I don't know. It's strange because TJ, okay, he's not a well-liked guy or anything, but I think he's getting a little bit more stick than, the average guy who comes back from a 2-year drug ban from USADA gets. I don't know why that is. Like, he came out and kind of owned up to it, so maybe, you would think that would give you some, in the legal system, that would give you some credit, but in the public eyes, it kind of seems that you're better off just making up some bullshit about some Mexican beef or something.
Yeah, I feel like at the time when he did fail it, and we talked about it at that time, we thought he might get a bit of credit for it. I did a bit of a podcast this week and didn't really even mention that. But I was thinking about it afterwards. It was funny you mentioned it there, that he really hasn't. That didn't help him at all. And a lot of people who are criticising him are... Look, a lot of people are fucking anti-USADA and they're still criticising him, but a lot of people are like pro-drug testing, big drug testing, and pro-USADA. Yet he served his USADA time. He served his 2 years. Unless you're you want someone banned for life for taking drugs, it's hard to understand that. If you either get behind it, you get behind the system, or you don't get behind the system. So I don't know. Look, at TJ Dillashaw served his time for me, and I think people should be allowed to serve their time and come back if that's the system we're under. So I don't know. But yeah, I thought he looked good. I thought it was a good performance. I didn't think he won, but it was a very close fight, by no means a robbery. So he moves on now.
I think he did a lot better than a lot of people were predicting before the fight.
I do as well. But having said that, I'm not sure he has long left at the very top. He is old for that division, and the game moves along very, very quickly. And Peter Yan or Aljamain Sterling even are a big task if he meets them next. But however, right, you saw the Artem fight tonight. I actually just missed it, and I haven't been able to catch up on it since. But he fought in BKFB, or bouted in BK bare knuckle. How did it go? What did you think of it?
Yeah, it was in a sand pit.
It was the coolest thing I've ever seen, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's like sandbags all around the place, and I think they could have put a few more and make it a bit higher, but maybe that was for some kind of cameras and stuff like that. But Artem obviously came to fight and threw a lot of punches early, but his opponent just had more crisp punches, and I think the turning point was a couple of nice body shots that kind of turned the fight to one-sided, and I think there was 2 or 3 8 counts that Artem took, and by the third one you just knew there was an inevitability to this. So it's a it's a crazy sport, if you can call it that.
Really great. Yeah.
The look of it is like it looked like something they're filming, like a movie scene or something.
Snatch or something.
It looked like yeah. It actually does. It looks like that. There was one video I saw last week in the lead up to this where they're wearing jeans.
Yeah, that was class.
That looked exactly like it was like from a movie or something. You're like, what movie is this?
But sure, yeah. But there was, fair play to Artem. And look, I said it last night as well after the Paige Van Zandt Rachel Ostovich bout. I'm not a fan of bare knuckle boxing. I don't like it at all, to be honest. But I would not criticize the fighters 1 minute for going out and getting that money while it's still there. It's not going to last. This bare knuckle stuff is just absolutely not going to last. But take that money while you can get it. Absolutely take the money. It doesn't hurt your MMA record or anything like that.
Except for if you're Paulie Maldonado.
Yeah, well,
he definitely should have done
that. Probably not, actually, but he probably got paid pretty well, but however. Right, let's move on to next week. And we'll run through this UFC card pretty quickly because the Bellator card is the main one from next week. Not a fantastic UFC card, but there's some people to look out for. 7-0 Orion Koski is taking on Philip Rowe in the undercard here. Ryan Benoit is on the card at flyweight. Always fun to see the flyweights in action as well. There's about 50 fights in this card. Kritz Grutzmacher is on the card here. The former champion of the world, Nico Montano, up at 135 pounds. She still is at 4-3. It seems like she hasn't fought in about 10 years. Munir Lazez against Nicholas Stolze. That should be a good fight. Lazez has been training with John Mitchell, Ireland's own, for the last while, so it'll be interesting to see what he looks like. Brian Barberino, always a fan favourite, fighting Jason Witt. Sam Alvey will probably circle around and be smiling and may knock someone out, but probably will lose. Ronnie Yaya will probably triangle someone on this as well. And then in the co-main event, Shami versus Chris Stokes is the fight. Chantel Boys actually against Gloria de Polio at 115 as well. In the main event, Sean Strickland against Uriah Hall. I went back and watched a bit of Strickland, Brendan Allen I was watching fighting. He fights very differently a lot of the time, does Sean Strickland. In that fight, he was fighting a very straight up boxing type of fight that you very rarely see in MMA, but that actually might not be the worst style in the world for Uriah Hall if your chin can hold up. Now, it could be a terrible fighting style for Uriah Hall if you don't have good footwork and you don't get inside and land that boxing. But if you're able to get inside in Hall and put the pressure on him, I think it could be tough for Hall, but I would favour Hall in this one. I just think he will be kicking from the outside. He's a little bit too fast for Sean Strickland, and I feel like he has been. I think Uriah Hall, he gets criticised a lot, and he's deserved a lot of it over the years. But I don't think recently he has. I think he's become a more intelligent fighter, more cerebral fighter, and I think he will pick Sean Strickland apart over 3 or 4 rounds here and knock him out. I would say in the second half of the fight. How do you see that one, Graham? It's a fun main event, not a great card though.
I don't know about that. I don't know if Uriah Hall has really turned the corner the way maybe you think he has. No. Strickland's kind of been on the up. He's a difficult fighter to figure out. It seems every time he go in there, he kind of stifles his opponent, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he does that to Uriah Hall here. I just don't really trust Uriah Hall in a big fight against a good guy. I don't know. Yeah,
I think it is going to be one of those fights where it's tough to know sometimes which Uriah Hall is going to show up and what we're going to see from him. But I don't know. I do trust him a bit more. I think he is a better fighter than maybe we've given him credit for over the last while, and I think he has been a bit unfairly maybe spoken of over the last while, and I think he'll win this, but we shall I suppose we shall see how it goes, and we'll see how they get on next week as well. I believe it's Cage Warriors card over in America, the first one they have, with a lot of American fighters on. I thought we were going to see maybe some from this side of the world. But is that next week? I think it is next week. It's the 1st of August, isn't it? Graham, you can Google it there. Well, I'm in the darkness here. I was trying to Google it there, but I can't even see my fucking thing. Also as well, coming up very soon, Palahan is fighting over in Combat Chase America. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. We're recording this on Saturday night, obviously, but on Sunday this week, Danny Nyland is fighting, Ryan Spillane is fighting. There was another few fights as well, and actually, as we're speaking, Ian O'Neill is putting something together about it now, and the UFC card as well. So we'll see the results up there tonight. I think Sean Bannon was fighting there as well. So big weekend for Irish MMA, and lots of big weekend coming up next week as well, I suppose. And Ian Gary, Dean Barry as well, giving out about people not talking about him, but hopefully he'll be fighting soon as well. So big update probably next week, and myself and Ian might be doing the chase and pack as well at some stage as well. So that should be fun. But the Bellator card next week, and the main event especially, this is the big one coming up here. The undercard has some fun fights on it. Brian Moore, we talk about a big week for Irish MMA. Kiefer Crosby fighting Georgie Carcanyon. I was watching a bit of, obviously we mentioned the Brian Moore Jared Scoggins fight and accidentally broke that a while back, but it's a big fight for Brian Moore. Scoggins 10-1 in his career. Okay, this is his first fight for Bellator, but he won the CFFC bantamweight title in his last fight, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a very, very good record, lots of rounds under his belt as well, and lots of experience fighting in some of the big organizations over in America. Has fought in LFA as well. So, maybe not the big name Brian Moore was hoping for, but a very, very tough task. And, Brian Moore, he was when the what are they called? The rankings came out at the start for Bellator. He was right up there, and he was ranked, and he kind of fell out of them for some odd reason. And I think maybe if he had stayed on, he would have been able to get a bigger fight. But if he does win this, I think he'll be back into him, and he'll be back into a big fight as well. But this is one of those fights where it's probably tougher tougher than it looks in terms of when you hear the name at first, and when you look at the record, maybe you'll see it. But this is a big fight for Brian Moore, isn't it, Graham? Going over to America as well.
Yeah, it is. You kind of mentioned there that he's kind of, maybe not getting the recognition, dropping out of the rankings that he deserves, Brian Moore. But I don't really know much about his opponent, Scoggins, but Brian Moore's record maybe holds him back in terms of people rating him, and his positioning on the card here. It seems like the card I'm looking at here, that he's
you never know what Bellator,
the second fight of the night, which yeah, I was just thinking that as I was saying that. Kiefer, I can see Kiefer's name ahead of him there, and we all remember missing the Kiefer fight because the fight order we were all sent with it was so off that we thought we had a couple of hours, but we'd actually already missed the fight.
What the fight has happened? Yeah, it has. But yeah, you never know what Bellator so tune in early. Hopefully this will be on Virgin Media too as well, rather than sports, and we'll all be able to actually watch it. But tough fight for Kiefer as well, though. Georgie Carcanyon, we saw what he did against Melzer. Especially after Kiefer losing his last fight. Now, I went back and watched that fight this week, and maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked at the time for Kiefer. He did well at the start of the fight, but he took a lot of big shots in that fight. He had a bad cut as well. I know it's a good while ago now, but to recover mentally, I suppose, from that is one thing. Physically, I'm sure he'll be 100% recovered and everything, because it's been a good while. But going in against Carcanyon, who's a good wrestler, good on top. Kiefer's been out as well training with James Galler and James Krause for the last couple of, I don't know, maybe months or weeks. He's been out there for a while now. I've seen him putting up pictures, and I'm sure that's a very, very good thing. We saw Derek Miller tonight, who, he fought Darren Elkins, and obviously it ended badly for him, but you could see his ability and his wrestling ability. He'd be a perfect guy to train for, going in to fight Carcanyon. Okay, a bit smaller, but Carcanyon has fought down 145 before and things as well. But big fight for Kiefer. It's one of those ones that's a risky one, but I feel like Kiefer has kind of been wanting a risky fight over the last few years, hasn't he? And if he wins it, it could propel him a bit through that division, couldn't it?
Well, it's definitely a name. If he's looking for a name, this is a guy who's fought everybody. He's fought, how many times? What is it? 42 times. He's fought the best guys in a lot of different promotions. His losses are to like Bellator veterans or really good guys. AJ McKee, Emmanuel Sanchez, Henry Corrales, Pat Curran, Weichel. back to Pitbull and Warren back in his early losses. This guy has fought a lot of tough guys. He has a lot of experience. He's been in there at the top level in Bellator. So it's a really tough fight. You might think that if Kiefer had won his last fight or two, that this would be the fight to make. But coming off, obviously, 2 losses in a row is difficult, and this is a huge fight for him, and it's couldn't have really chosen a harder guy. If you were making me predict, I would have predicted that he would have got a no name with a decent record to kind of bounce back from. But obviously he's, as you said, he's gone off and changed up his training a bit for this, so hopefully that will pay dividends here. But this is a very difficult fight.
Yeah, 100%. Magomedov was supposed to be fighting Rafian Stats in this, but that's off as well. Magomed Sharipov, who's the brother of Magomed Sharipov, was supposed to be on this card, but that fight is also off. But there are some very good fights. Ilaria Joanna, the Arya Stark lady, is on this card against Vanessa Porto. That's a tough fight for her. Chris Gonzalez, 6-0 against Skaichi Yamamoto, who's 30 fights deep. Former champion Bryn Primus is on the card against Islam Magomedov. Usman Nurmagomedov against Manny Murdo. Nurmagomedov 12-0. So that's a big fight for him. He could be right into title contention with that one as well. And speaking of title contention, Mads Burnell in the co-main event against Emmanuel Sanchez. What a fight that is. And Mads, we've been saying it for a while from his Cage Warriors time that this guy is one of the best fighters in the world, outside of the UFC and maybe even inside of the UFC, where he probably should still be if they hadn't been ridiculously letting people go there at one stage. But big fight and a very fun fight against Emmanuel Sanchez. But the main event, AJ McKee.
Just before you go on to the main event there, I just want to mention that I said that Kiefer had lost his last 2, but he actually won the second last one by split decision in a highly debated and decision. So
Michael Jackson wasn't it before that as well? The neck press, remember that one?
Yeah. Oh god. That was a few. Oh my god. I hope he's recovered.
I hope he's okay. Pray for my hashtag. Pray for Michael Jackson.
We forgot to start that GoFundMe for him.
We're on Michael Jackson. Oh god, he moonwalked his way out of that fight. Anyway, Patricio Pitbull versus AJ McKee. Like, this is a fight where I look at it on paper and I think AJ McKee will win, but then I watch the Pitbull fights and I just see him like walking forward and just like torpedoing people to fucking into outer space with his fucking his big shots, and I'm like, well, maybe not. Like, McKee does put himself in. He's 17-0, but he's not a 17-0 where he's never been tested or never been put into awkward positions. Like, even in that fight where he won recently with that weird submission, like, he wasn't in the best he wasn't in the best position then, and he's had some tough fights over the last while. Fought Darian Caldwell in that fight I just mentioned, fought Derek Campos, fought Canyon, fought Pat Curran, Daniel Crawford, even Brian Moore in Brian Moore's, well, maybe not his backyard, but in his training grounds backyard, I suppose. And he's
and he didn't have it all his own way.
No.
He had a crowd on his back. He had a bit of adversity in that fight, and he came out with the finish, or he came out with the victory. So, it's a really tough fight to call. It's definitely a big step up for AJ. He's looked absolutely phenomenal. He's blown through his last 3 opponents with relative ease, and he's never lost. If you look at Pitbull's record, there's a loss on there against Benson Henderson due to a leg injury, but I think you can kind of take that off there. And his last loss before that was nearly 6 years ago to Strauss, and I think he's a much better fighter now. He's much more well-rounded and developed in every facet of the game. So he's beaten Sanchez, he's beaten Chandler, he's beaten Pedro Carvalho, he's beaten Sanchez again with a guillotine choke in his last fight. He's been on a real tear. This is this is one of the best Bellator fights in a long time that I can remember, and I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, I think AJ McKee will try to be very elusive on the feet. Like we talk about needing 5 rounds in your back pocket and needing that cardio. I think he will, because I think he will not want to get caught early by Pitbull, and maybe he has that ability to take it late, and wear him down a little bit. But McKee in a top level fight like that, going 5 rounds, that isn't something he's really proven yet either. So and I suppose, like, how can you prove it until you prove it against someone as good as Pitbull? There are people like Pitbull just walking around, especially not in Bellator. So I think it will be one of those ones where it will be him being elusive and Pitbull trying to cut off the cage and trying to walk him down and trying to land shots. In the last while, I think cutting off the cage has become something that MMA fighters are way better at than they once were. I think it was a thing before that we used to talk about an awful lot, but that people didn't do very well. And I think it's actually the opposite now. So, I'm not going strictly on that, but I feel like that will be a bit of an advantage for Pitbull. I think AJ McKee's jiu-jitsu is very good. We've seen it, and he's funky and he's good on the ground. If it managed to go there, Pitbull, he comes inside an awful lot and lands big shots, but if he misses them, sometimes he ends up barreling lads to the cage or barreling to the ground, and there's tends to be scrambles and things like that. So if McKee is able to maybe drag him down a little bit, I think you could get him there. But McKee hits hard as well, and he will try to land big shots and big shots from the outside and be elusive while doing that as well. So this is a fight. I think AJ McKee is a more varied and maybe not necessarily well-rounded fighter, where Pitbull is more basic maybe, but in a very, very dangerous way, and he is more dangerous, I think, because of that. So I don't know who's going to win this fight. I'll probably, if you ask me 5 times in the next week, I'll probably tell you maybe 3-2 one way or the other way, and that's the sort of fight that we absolutely love. So if you're not a big Bellator fan, if you just watch the UFC or maybe Cage Warriors and KSW and all those, this is the one you need to watch, and trust me on that. This is the fight you need to watch, and I'm very much looking forward to it. It should be fun. And also rumours that Bellator are coming back to Ireland as well in the year. MMA Junkie reported that. My understanding of it is not official yet, but we should know in the next 2 weeks. So let's wait and see on that. But I have the Gibson booked anyway, just in case. So let's hope it happens. But
do you know what is official?
Yeah. What?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's new contract.
Yeah, well, we won't get into that. I don't mind it. I like a bit of Ole.
He's kicked it off nicely with a 4-2 loss to QPR.
Yeah, sure. Look, that's not a thing to get into at 4:12 in the morning, Graham. I think we leave that. We'll actually, you know what? We'll have to do a podcast. We might get Ken early on again. We might say to him, try to get him on before the season starts to do another podcast. But probably shouldn't have said that on air. But look, we put it out there now anyway, so we're gonna have to do it. Right, let's end it there. Graham, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for listening.
Don't let the people down, Ken. Don't let the people down, Ken.
Don't let them, Ken. We know you listen. We know you listen. I was actually listening to one of the Second Captain's podcast today, and Ken wasn't on it, funnily enough, talking about GA. But if anyone has any good podcast recommendations as well, like GA podcasts or anything like that, let me know, because Limerick are so class now. It's Limerick and Dublin, Graham. I feel like it's us. We're bringing Limerick and Dublin to different levels of GA. Just because of I
think most people in Dublin just don't really care about GA.
I feel like a good few of them do, in fairness now. So
a good few of them do, but it's not like it's not like down in your neck of the woods where it's everything.
I don't know. I don't know. A lot of people do, but there's different. Like in Limerick, a lot of people don't give a shit. In my part of Limerick as well, it's mostly football, but there's a lot of rugby and stuff in Limerick as well. But in certain, like Kilkenny, there's nothing, or Kerry, there's fuck all else. Only hurling in Kilkenny and only football in Kerry, but although there's a bit of hurling in Kerry in place as well. But however, this is not a conversation for today. Thank you to everyone. Graham, good luck. Any parting words? Has the dog anything to say? No, nothing to say.
No, he's back asleep now.
All right, go on. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you all next time. Good luck.